And now David will give us our scripture for today.
Today's reading is from the Gospel according to St. John, chapter 8, verses 1 through 12. Then Jesus went to the Mount of Olives, and in the morning he came again to the temple, and all the people were coming to him, and he sat down and taught them. Then the scribes and the Pharisees brought a woman who was caught in adultery, and they made her stand in the midst. They said to him, "Teacher, this woman was caught openly in the act of adultery. Now in the law of Moses it is commanded that women such as these should be stoned. But what do you say?" They said this to tempt him, that they might have a cause to accuse him. While Jesus was bent down, he was writing on the ground. When they were through questioning him, he straightened himself up and said to them, "He who is among you without sin, let him throw a stone at her." And again, as he bent down, he wrote on the ground. And when they heard it, they left one by one, beginning with the elders, and the woman was left alone in the midst. When Jesus straightened himself up, he said to the woman, "Where are they? Did no man condemn thee?" She said, "No man, Lord." Then Jesus said, "Neither do I condemn you. Go away, and from henceforth do not sin again." Again Jesus spoke to them, saying, "I am the light of the world. He who follows me shall not walk in darkness, but he shall find for himself the light of life." And now Reverend Macaulay will give us our sermon lesson.
Well, this morning's lesson is on Memorial Day 2009. Once again, we get to celebrate another Memorial Day throughout the country. I thought I'd talk about Memorial Day this morning and what it means to us as American citizens. Memorial Day is a day we celebrate in honor of those American veterans and our allies who gave their lives while serving their country, usually in times of war. As a child, my memories of Memorial Day were not really related to remembering those who had died serving their country, but rather Memorial Day signified the approach of the end of the school year, commencement, and the beginning of summer vacation. Not long after Memorial Day, the weather gets significantly warmer, our wardrobe changes from slacks to short pants, and we get really serious about backyard outdoor barbecues. We start thinking about and planning trips to the beach, summer outdoor concerts, and a whole myriad of outdoor summer activities and weekend trips. What does Memorial Day mean to you? How do you celebrate Memorial Day? Does it mean more to you than simply the unofficial start of summer? As an adult, I drive past the Federal Veterans Cemetery in Westwood each day on my way to and from work. Yet what do I know about the bodies buried there? Many have been buried there since long before I was born. I don't know who they were, nor to whom they were related. Yet the vast number of grave markers is overwhelming. Each grave represents a man or woman who died in service to their country. Certainly they didn't expect to end up there, but I imagine it was an honor to have been buried there, along with all the other soldiers. Still, I've had enough experience in life to have observed various conflicts over time. The Vietnam years affected me personally, as I found myself contemplating, how would I address the Vietnam conflict? Would I register for the draft? Would I register as a conscientious objector? Certainly, coming from a Quaker school, I could have gotten letters from the headmaster and various teachers recommending that I not be drafted. On the other hand, would I flee to Canada to avoid the draft? As it turned out, the college deferment was eliminated while I was in college. This meant that when I entered college as a freshman, I could avoid the draft. However, once the deferment ended, I was subject to the draft. There was a lottery based on birthdays. My draft number turned out to be 356 out of 365. That meant there were 355 birthdays ahead of me in line, which therefore meant that I would not likely be drafted after all. Interestingly enough, when I began in my college freshman year, there were 1,000 students in the freshman class. The deferment ended, and there were only about 250 in my graduating class. Thus, about 750 students where 75% of my class dropped out as a result of the termination of the deferment. Had circumstances been different, I might have gone to Vietnam, and who knows how different my life would have been today. Lots of people were not so lucky. In the past 30 years or so, the world has changed in many ways. In many ways, we've seen incredible improvements to the quality of our lives. Our cars are more efficient. We have computers that control many aspects of our lives and keep us connected with in our businesses and with our loved ones. And tiny cell phones and cameras that fit in our shirt pockets. When we stop and take a look at our world, even in spite of the current economic climate, it's apparent that we are blessed to live in the United States of America. If you don't see it that way, sometimes it helps to take a look at how others live in other countries to put our lives into perspective. We are so fortunate to live in a time when medicine is making strides daily in improving the quality of life. Medical procedures are becoming less invasive, less difficult for the patients, with less recovery time than in years past. What I'm getting at is that clearly, and if it isn't so clear to you, then take a look and give it some thought. Clearly, life overall continues to improve with each generation, and we owe a tremendous debt of gratitude to those soldiers resting in the various veteran cemeteries throughout the country. This isn't something that's easily understood when you're a child. In fact, as a child, some of us may have felt that we were entitled to grow up in a free country, safe from the outside influences from the rest of the world. But the fact is that many who went before us gave their lives so that we could enjoy that sense of entitlement. Most of us will never know and never knew those who gave their lives or what kinds of sacrifices were made on our behalf. This weekend in particular, lots of movies are being shown on TV to remind us of all the men and women who gave their lives, plotted, planned, and schemed to protect their country, to outwit the bad guys, so that we could sleep soundly and safely at night. I urge you to take a look at one or more of those films, especially ones you've never seen before. Granted, Hollywood tends to embellish, and sometimes they do take liberties with plots, but there are stories out there which need to be told and retold, as many of the sacrifices of our men in uniform form the foundation for our life in this country, and it's important that you know and understand that history and the historical significance of those sacrifices. You might meet a veteran over the weekend. You might take the opportunity to talk to that veteran and find out what he has to say. Learn about his or her impression of history. Many of those elderly people have stories to tell about the history of our brave nation, and I invite you to explore and see what you can learn about our colorful history. One thing is for certain: the older I become, the greater my understanding of and appreciation for our veterans. Clearly, when I was of age, the idea of going to war was hideous. I didn't want to go to Vietnam, and I certainly didn't agree with our administrations that we needed to fight in Vietnam. Of course, today, in comparing Vietnam with the conflict in Iraq, I can recall the devastating effect Vietnam had on our society long after the conflict was deemed over. The healing of our society took a good 10 years at least after the war was considered finished. That period of healing served as a reminder not to get into conflict again, as the cost was overwhelming, not only in financial terms, but was especially high in light of the debilitating effect on so many people's mental health. The bottom line this morning is that I want to suggest that if the idea of Memorial Day doesn't conjure up expressions of gratitude to our many veterans, then you should be asking yourself, why doesn't it?